What have you been up to lately?
Well, working on a lot of different things, including Strength Camp International, which is our licensing program for Strength Camp gyms. We're working on about 20 locations worldwide right now. And beyond that, I'm going on a speaking tour. I'm going to be doing Yo Elliott live events throughout the States. I've been doing grounding camps about 4 times a year. I'm going to bring that down to about 2 times a year. And I just turned it into Grounding Man, so it's a men's only event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that. What's the story behind that Grounding Man? Because it looked like fantastic. Like I was watching a video of it and it looked insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's incredible. It's great. It's it started out as Grounding Camp because it was my effort to bring active meditation and bioenergetics to the world, really, because it's sorely needed and so many people don't know much about it, but particularly to young men.
Okay. Yeah, I was just talking to Jason Capital on the podcast, and he was telling me a story about how you first did bioenergetics with him, and you just sat him down like on like a little stool or something in the room, and you told him to like take his shirt off, and then you led him through some kind of experience. And then he said at the end of this bioenergetics experience, he's felt such bliss.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really what it is. When we can resolve the blocks that keep us from expressing ourselves, that's really what it is. It is quite blissful.
How did you get into that?
Well, I was in New York at the age 24, and my wife got pregnant, and I was living in my father-in-law's basement, and I got sick, and I was depressed, and I had been reading the work of Osho for many years, and I knew that meditation might be of support, but Osho suggested active meditation and dynamic meditations, and he's got a plethora of different ones, and they just sounded so cool to me, so I decided to take a class on it in New York City. And when I moved to Florida, there was no more. I wanted to continue doing it, but there was no more of it, and so I got busy with my career and everything. But after things started going well in my business, and I started hitting another transitional stage in my life, I started looking forward again, and through my search I found bioenergetic analysis, and I worked with Bob Glazier, who's a bioenergetic analyst, for 4 years, and it had a tremendous impact on my life.
And that was when you were 24. You were saying, I think I was watching one of your videos a while ago, you're saying every 12 years you have like a transitional period in your life, or that's what you found?
Oh, not only have I found it experientially, which was first, but then I saw the reasoning behind it and the theories that were proposed by one of my teachers, and I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. 24, 36, those are 2 ages where I had, I don't use the term crisis, but cross or forks in the road, like, okay, at age 24, and I see it time and time again, most with all the young men that I work with, that right around age 24, it's a matter of closing doors, closing off to old parts of yourselves that no longer are needed, and opening up brand new doors to what the next 12 years are going to offer.
What happened to you? Like, what was that kind of like moment when you were 24?
Oh, I just said I was depressed, and we had just gotten married, and we had our child. We were living in my father-in-law's basement. It was a mess. I've always been a high achiever, and I felt like a loser, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I didn't know what kind of career I was going to. I had no clue. And so I moved down to Florida with my parents. My parents moved here the year before, and it was it was a fresh start for me. It was literally like I hit the refresh button, and my life just went in a completely different trajectory.
Okay. And then what about at 36?
Well, that's when I quit making YouTube videos. That's when I took my long hiatus. That's when I quit Strength Camp Gym, moved out, started Strength Camp International, brought on a business partner. I mean, my whole life just crumbled and started rising up in a different way. And I'm 39 now, so I've got just enough space to be objective about what was going on. And I'm still learning so much about myself, but 36 was the age where it all started spinning.
So it started spinning, like how? Can you go into like maybe the story of what happened and then the journey over the past 3 years?
Well, I sensed it. It was like God was talking to me. If you're paying attention, you're listening, your body, your intuition talks to you and lets you know, hey, this is right. You can feel it. You got a gut feeling, and you also get a gut feeling that this is not right. This is not what's best for you. This is not where I want you to go. I need you to do a course correction. And so I heard that. My ego didn't like it, so I resisted it. And in my resistance, I just like Jonah in the whale, I got thrown into the ocean and swallowed up by a monster. And for me, it looked like injuries. I tore my right bicep. I tore both biceps. I had hernia repair. I tore my Achilles tendon, fucked up my neck. So for a guy whose life revolves around physicality, the wake up call came through my body.
So are you still nursing those injuries?
Nursing? No. I'm back to bodybuilding, feeling great. I just got back. The reason why I was a few minutes late because I was meeting my structural energetic therapist in Tampa who did, oh man, he went deep on my legs. My legs have been kind of imbalanced lately because of the injury to my Achilles tendon. So I'm healing,
That's good. That's good to be on that path for healing. Because I actually just signed up to a gym down the street just to work on things that I don't like working on, just because I was watching one of your videos and you were talking about your injuries, and I was like, man, I got to start thinking about longevity because I don't want to be getting injured and having to take time off and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was quite a setback, but one step back, two steps forward. At least that's the way it seems to me. It's like the harder you fall, the higher you'll bounce, or the harder you slam that ball on the ground, the higher it'll bounce. So I'm not afraid of pain. I'm not afraid of injuries. I'm not afraid of challenges. In the moment, it's devastating, but I've come to see them almost instantly as a blessing.
If you could go back in time, would you have done anything differently in your training?
No. I may have gotten into bodybuilding sooner, but I was a brute. I played football. I banged heads for 2 decades, and then sorry, I just got a new kitten, and she's clawing at my back. So then after football was strongman, and again, I have a gift for strength, so I was able to move those odd objects, and flip those tires, and lift those stones, and I enjoyed the fact that I did it. Of course, I had injuries, and of course, the body suffers a bit if you abuse it that way. But I liked it, and I would do it all over again. Now, when I say that I would have got into bodybuilding sooner, for no other reason that I never realized how much fun it was bodybuilding, because I was always a strength athlete, and healthier for my joints and for my body, my core. So that's about it. But no, I'm happy. I'm happy with everything as it unfolded.
How old were you when you started bodybuilding?
Oh, I just started. 36. Yeah, 36. So 24, I stopped playing football. So I guess you could say between 24 and 36, it was strongman, powerlifting. I was a brute. And now 36, it seems like this next 12-year cycle, this next trip around the clock, if you will, it's going to look a lot more like bodybuilding and, paying very close attention to my nutrition and aesthetics. You get to, if I get to I'm going to be 40 in 1 year. I'm 39. You don't want to get to 40 fat because, or out of shape or weak, because from there it just keeps getting harder and harder. So I've got a leg up because I've been training my whole life, but I want to hit that milestone at my best and then let that take me into the next phase.
Did you start training in football? Is that how you kind of got introduced to the weight room?
Yeah, speaking of bodybuilding, well, my uncle lived with me when I was a kid. My uncle Elroy, he was a gymnast. He was a marathon runner, and most poignantly, he was a martial artist, black belt in Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. So he taught me and my brothers how to train when we were kids. I was 4 years old doing push-ups and sit-ups in the basement. Uh, but when I turned about 14 years old and I was playing football and my uncle became a bodybuilder, he introduced me to the idea of lifting weights for strength, size, and performance. And I never looked back. In fact, like when I discovered weightlifting, I almost didn't want to play football. I wasn't looking forward to the season, which, I'm happy that I did play it. I was so geeked about lifting, I didn't want to stop.
That's amazing. It's kind of funny how you were probably more into the gym than you were into actually playing the actual sport. When you were in the gym, like even now, do you still think about your uncle?
Oh, I think about my uncle all the time. I uploaded a video yesterday where I gave him a big shout out because he's my inspiration for this being in my most aesthetic and fit shape by 40, because he won his first bodybuilding show. He competed in one show and cleaned the whole thing up and never did it again when he turned 40. So I was like, yeah, that's pretty badass. I don't want to compete, but I could see how badass that is to be 40 and to be in that kind of shape.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where did you grow up?
Long Island, New York.
Long Island? And then what was it like growing up in Long Island?
Yeah, I mean, it was okay, I guess. One notable thing about Long Island is that it's known to be the most socioeconomically segregated suburb in America. It's a suburb of New York City, and if you know anything about New York, I don't know where you're from, but like there are lots and lots of different kinds of cultures. You got. I grew up with a lot of Italians and Jews and Jamaicans and Haitians and Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, and so growing up in that kind of diversity, but also seeing where everybody fit in. Everybody had their little. I didn't fit in because I'm of mixed race, so it was kind of an opportunity for me to be everyone and no one at the same time. So I spent a lot of time asking myself, who am I, as a kid.
Mm-hmm. And did your parents help you with that, or like were you more drawn to your uncle or your parents?
Oh, well, when do you mean? I mean, it depends. I have great parents. My parents are amazing. And when I was becoming a teenager, I was getting into a bunch of trouble. And of course, my dad was not happy with it, so he was grounding me all the time. And my dad's a tough guy. But my uncle came in right about the same time. It's interesting. At age 14, 12, there you go again, 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then you're getting 12, 13. That's like between the 12 o'clock and the 3 o'clock, that first 3 years after the 12 o'clock spot, that's really when you're getting your mission. That's really when things start being shown to you. And it was around that time that I found weightlifting that because of my uncle, that really, I want to say set me straight, but gave me something as a young man to direct all this new testosterone and energy towards. If young men don't have an outlet for that energy, it can quickly be directed towards something destructive rather than constructive, or it could just turn in on ourselves, and that's where you get like teenage depression. Like there's no way that a young man should be depressed or suicidal. It's because he's taking that energy and he's turning it in towards himself. So I had I had weightlifting, and I had my girlfriend, who's now my wife, that I met when I was 14 years old.
Wow.
So my energy, which is high, and I've got a lot of it, was spoken for. So it really like gave me a path. I lift, and I got my girlfriend. Like, what else am I going to do? I never got into video games, kept me out of trouble, and my life now is a byproduct of that.
That's really cool. And then what was the biggest lesson you learned from your father then?
Oh, I've learned so many lessons from my father. One that means more to me now than ever before is my dad's sense of me first, like loving myself first. Like my dad's is they say he's really arrogant, and a lot of people don't get along with him. They don't like it. But he loves pissing people off. Like he's that kind of guy. And and when I was a kid, I didn't understand. But now as an adult, I look at him like, yeah, he's a sovereign man. He grew up in a jungle. He does not give a fuck what you think about him. Like honestly, and he actually kind of gets a kick out of like pissing you off. Like, oh, you're mad because of what I said, and he may have said something that didn't even make any sense, but he's gonna just sit where he's at, and you're gonna be upset, and he's just gonna laugh. So I love that about him, and it's taught me a lot about how to be in this world. You can't spend your life apologizing or hoping other people are going to like you or be friendly. My dad would always say that. He says, I have no friends. I have no friends, and I am the bad guy. Those were his two things. I'm the bad guy, and I'm going to be the bad guy. I don't care if you think I'm the bad guy. And so I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's actually one of the greatest lessons anyone can learn, really. Just learning to love yourself. And because if you can't love yourself, how can you love anyone else outside?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
And then speaking of yourself, you said there's a 4-layer approach to becoming the strongest version of yourself. What's the story behind this evolution of this approach that you came up with?
Well, I've always had a sense that I am a lot more than this. And I learned that because as a kid growing up in a suburb of New York City where everybody knew what they were, people would always ask me, Elliott, what are you? What are you? What are you? And like, for a kid, I'm like, oh, what the fuck kind of question is that? What do you mean? And I really couldn't answer. When I started realizing people were talking about their race or their religion or their ethnicity, I was like, oh, well, my parents are from Belize, and back then nobody knew what the fuck that was, so I was a liar. I even had teachers call me a liar, like, Elliott, there's no such thing as Belize. And so here I am, a kid with no fucking identity, and so I began I really loved that question. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And it brought me to the philosophy section of the library when I was like in middle school, and I picked up a book by, I think it's Rollo May, and he is a quantum physicist. He's a physicist and a spiritualist. And he introduced me to the idea that we are far more than just this. He spoke about it in terms of quantum physics, and he spoke of it in terms of spirituality and religion. And so being into lifting, being into fitness, and then being into spirituality, it was nothing for me to just bridge the gap and to see how all the pieces fit together. I am spirit, I am mind, I am emotion, and I am body. So that 4-layer approach for me is just a matter of blending all that we are together. You know, we live in some people call it the postmodern age, but where this materialistic reductionism is that's what science has become. You know, unless we can break it down materialistically to its constituent parts, it doesn't exist. If we can't see it, taste it, smell it, touch it, then it doesn't exist. That's a very unscientific way of going about life anyway, but it's one of the ways that we've been trained to think about ourselves, and it's very, very, very disempowering because we're left with nothing but believing that we're a bag of flesh in a random experience, and we're as we are as human beings just by some fluke in evolution that made our brains smart. And whether or not that's quote unquote true, that's is the word nihilistic? It's very shallow. It with that type of paradigm, there is no reason why I wouldn't take my life. There is no reason why I wouldn't take someone else's life. There is no reason why I wouldn't pollute the planet and destroy the planet and people, you know. And this is what we're doing now because this is what we've come to. There's no meaning in our lives. So when nothing has meaning, it's disposable, meaningless, and useless.
Mm-hmm. So this is something you've been thinking about for a while then?
Well, sure, yeah.
Was there, obviously, like the first two where you start talking about like taking care of your body and your lifting and the nutrition, that came first in your life. What about the third and the fourth one? Were they just something that you've always been thinking about and it just started to make sense, or was there a story behind how you came about those and started to feel them?
Well, you just experience life. Emotion is real. Emotion, energetic strength, which is the third layer of strength, is a reminder that what you feel is not random, it's not wrong, and it needs to be honest and it needs to be recognized, because it's always a signal from your inner being, right? Even as you experience it inner-wise, butterflies in my stomach, or heartbreak. If you've ever gotten your heart breaking, it literally feels like the heart is breaking. This is where the energy in the body is informing you as to what is going on physiologically. So when you're sad, you're crying, there's an overload, and there is a energetic response that ties together your body and your mind, which is your breath. So when someone's crying, just notice how they're breathing. Breathing is very deep, it's very open, there's a lot of vibration going on. If you ever watch someone cry, there's a high vibration activity. They're even shaking. If you catch somebody who's in trauma, all this is going on. That's energy in motion, that's movement. When we honor it, we can look at it, we can interpret it, and we can allow it to help us guide us in our lives. It's a good thing. But when we, like we often do, stifle it, shut it down, suppress it, ignore it, turn our head away, even drug ourselves against it, now we're being anti-life, we're being anti-body, we're being anti the third layer of strength, energetic strength.
So you obviously, you meditate, you journal, you lift, and you do yoga as well, right?
Yes.
How do you incorporate all these into your routines, and then how do you help other people to incorporate it into their lives? Because you have your own business, you work from home, but then there are some people who, do have the 9 to 5 and everything. How can you fit that in so that everything becomes harmonious?
Well, the first thing I'd say is to notice that there are seasons. There are annual seasons. There are seasons of your life. There are seasons to the day. What's happening in the mornings, that same as what's happening at night. So going with the flow is the first step. I think we have too much of this need to get it done, get it, grind it, force yourself to do things, and I think it's counterproductive. And I think it makes people neurotic and crazy. So the very first thing is recognizing that, okay, right now it is I'm sensing that I'm in a very extroverted season. I'm in a sunshine season. I'm out there. I'm doing it. I'm sharing. I'm giving. And then there are seasons when they're introverted. I just want to read. I just want to be by myself. I just want to meditate. I want to go in. Do you see? So this pulsation that is evident throughout all of life. Every cell in our body pulsates. Expression and compression. This way. They say the whole universe pulsates. So the very first thing I would say is to get in touch with the season of pulsation in your body as it relates to the days, the weeks, the months, the years, and our entire life. We're doing this. And so when you can ride the wave, it's almost like one of my teachers says, Elliott, don't try to take your boat out when the tide is out. Well, it makes perfect sense. The tide is all the way out there. Why am I going to? So at first it was difficult for me, being a type A go-getter, when she would say, just allow it to come to you. Just wait. Have some patience. Take care of yourself. Put you first. All these things that but I got to go and I got to go get it. When the analogy, the tide is out, bro, what are you going to do? You're going to pull the boat? Just chill the fuck out until the tide comes back in. And then the tide takes the boat out for you. When you recognize where you are, whether you're in a winter or in a summer, you can then choose appropriately what your predominant or main rituals will be. There were seasons, I'm speaking of myself, where I didn't lift at all. These past few years have taught me introversion. I never knew introversion. I forced my way out for so long based on fear and guilt and the the idea that I need to do these things and be this way. And when I started injuring myself and being posed these new ways of being, I was forced, but then I gladly accepted this softening season where I did yoga and meditation, and I was a vegetarian for a little while, and I didn't lift. But I tell you that only because I allowed that, and because I allowed that, now I am a beast again, and I love lifting, and I eat steak every day. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm out again, I'm extroverted, and I need that energy. So I'm gaining weight again. So people call this depression. I think depression happens when you resist the natural inward season or colder season or compression season. But when we allow it, which we have to love ourselves more than anything or anybody else in the world to allow that, because the world doesn't recognize that. Your job's not going to say, oh, well, it looks like you're going into a season of introversion, take some time off from work. Your wife's is gonna be okay with that. What do you mean? The kid's gotta go to school. Whoa, everything's going crazy. But if you give yourself that space, if you can afford to give yourself that space, you'll find that you will, just like the seasons of the year when it turns cold, all the energy recedes into the trees and into the ground, and it's revitalized. Winter revitalizes. Yin season is feminine. Feminine is about growing something on the inside. What do women do? They grow something on the inside. So when you go into that dark yin feminine season, be it daily, or you got to ride you got to sense. I can't tell you when and how, but you got to sense. Then when it's time to come back out, you're revitalized. You have that much more energy, and you have that much more sense of self, sovereignty, and self-trust.
Yeah, so this pulsation, for you, how often does it change back and forth?
Well, like I said, throughout the day. Throughout the day, if I pay attention, I could come out like a rocket. Boom. And I normally do. Most days I come out like a rocket. And then by mid-morning, my body's saying, okay, recede a little bit. Take some time. Maybe I'll lay in a hammock, or maybe I'll go for a walk, or I'll just get some sun. And then you feel it. It comes up again. And then I'm like, have you ever, as an entrepreneur, you might recognize this, you're working on a project. You're really excited about working on the project. And you're grinding on working on the project, but you get to a point where it's like, I want to keep going, but I just can't. Like, I'm making myself nuts. And a lot of times, you go away, and then you come back, and you relook at it, and you're like, that's easy. And all of a sudden, you fixed what was killing you before. It's because we're resisting the season of the day, working past that season of extroversion is only going to make you more tired, and you're going to do bad work. So this is another one my dad taught me. When it's time, my dad is a workaholic. He busts his ass. But you go to my house or my parents' house and see him, he's oftentimes just laying in the hammock swinging in the middle of the day. It looks like he's sleeping. You blink your eyes, next thing you know, he's climbing a tree and chopping down branches and shit. It's because he senses, and what I'm offering you to do is to sense when your body's asking you to reach out and when to sink in. And also, it's the reaching out that a lot of people see. This sounds strange to some people because they're lazy. So if you're lazy, and most people, they have dreams of laziness, right? This is what we do. We work all week and then the weekend so I could fuck around. So they got dreams of laziness, and then they also have shame and guilt and remorse about laziness. But what I'm saying is, when you go hard, balls to the wall, then when it's time to go in and sink down, you feel good. You can do that. These people who can't sleep at night, a lot of times because they didn't do shit all day. You ever had one of these days where you're just laying around all day and then it comes nighttime and you're like, I can't sleep. Well, if you have insomnia, I say go out there, get some sunshine, go sprint in the sun, go lift in the sun, go get out there and spend all your energy, be extroverted, because that's what that time of the day is for. That's when our catabolic hormones are coming up. You got adrenaline and cortisol, and you're out there and you're getting it done, so that when the reverse happens and your anabolic hormones start taking over and it's time to go to sleep, you start getting dozy, you get melatonin, and then testosterone and growth hormone start coming up, you can sink right into it. So it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. And I guess you just have to like kind of observe it when it's happening and train yourself to observe it, kind of just like watching the clouds go by.
You can observe it, you can also train it, but you got to recognize that you got to train yourself in both ways. Meaning, like, if I want to create a pattern of extroversion, introversion, like Craig Ballantyne's perfect day formula is like a great way to structure yourself. Like, yeah, get up as soon as you can in the morning, first thing in the morning, and go get it. You're training yourself to be extroverted. But by noon, take your reading time, eat your lunch, go for a walk, you see? So you can train yourself into it, but when you train yourself into it, you can't just train yourself for the extroversion. I'm going to get it, I'm going to go, I'm going to discipline myself. You literally, especially if you're a type A, you literally got to train yourself to back the fuck off. There are times when I'm working and I'm like, okay, I have to make myself walk away from the computer, go outside, and I'm happy when I did. But sometimes I got to train myself away from the computer or work, you know.
Mm-hmm. Man, it's so crazy when you put it like this, because, you know, as soon as you're saying, I'm like, oh man, this is so true. This is so true. And I never thought of it as like, kind of like a wave. I always just thought it was like, go hard until you can't, and then, you know, back off a bit, go outside. Now I start to actually take, you know, if I have like business calls or client calls, I'll go out and I'll take a walk outside in the sun while taking it. And it's just like, it's an easy way to go up and down. It's, man, this is like mind blowing. This is really cool. All right. So in your exposing fake alphas video, you mentioned that you need to learn to love yourself unconditionally. And we've been speaking about this, you know, for the past half hour about loving yourself. How did you finally learn to love yourself?
It's tough because loving yourself could look like a myriad of different ways that are unresourceful. And one is like, someone who's an egotist who pushes himself upon people, and I'm right first. And, you might say that, oh, that person really likes themselves. A lot of times that person's just very, very, very fearful. And you could also have it where, oh, I love myself, so I don't do anything. I love myself, so I'm not gonna push myself too hard. So there's all these different ways that you can misconstrue that into all kinds of unresourceful ways of being. That's not what I'm talking about. When I talk about loving yourself, I'm talking about non-judgment. I'm talking about not judging yourself and having any guilt or shame about who you are when you make mistakes. That's really the big one, For me, there are a lot of things that I've done that when I look back, I don't have it anymore, but I was experiencing it, guilt and shame, like judging myself, like I'm better than that, I can do better than that, or I shouldn't have done that. But that is so unresourceful in a myriad of different ways, and it's so wrong in a myriad of different ways. One way that it's wrong is that it doesn't give you the foundation from which you can spring forward. Because if you're so busy wallowing, if you're so busy judging, you're so busy hating yourself or wishing you did something else, all that energy is going into beating yourself up and not into, okay, what did I learn and what could I do next? Good. Okay, I fucked up. I'm happy I fucked up, because if I didn't, I wouldn't see this now. Now I can see this shadow. Now I can see this part of myself that I was ignoring. Now I can see these things that I wasn't willing to look at before. It smacked me in my fucking face. Good. I won't do that again. You see what I'm saying? Rather than, oh, man, that set me back, or all the things that we do in order to beat ourselves up. That's the first one. The second one that I think is really resourceful is that you are God. We are God. God is having his experience through each and every one of us, no matter who we are and what we're doing. This is the play. This is the dance of God. God is Hitler, and God is Mussolini, and God is Gandhi, and God is Barack Obama, and God is you, and God is me. So God loves you no matter what the fuck you're doing. I could sit here and have all the dogma associated with Judeo-Christianity and say, well, maybe I shouldn't be saying fuck, and maybe I should be acting or thinking or behaving in a way that's more congenial to those who thump books rather than live life. And what I'm saying is be your authentic, sinful, broken self and love yourself that way, just the way God does. God does not love you any less because you're a jerk off. So, hey, God still loves me. I fucked up. I did this crazy shit. Now I'm in prison. God still loves me. So might as well just love myself so that I can get on with it and move on.
Yeah, it's you put it really, really simple there. I like that. How do you balance, taking care of your needs with also fulfilling your purpose in life and then balancing that with your family?
Well, for me, it's a good question, and this is another one from my dad. You got to take care of yourself first. First and foremost, we are flesh and bone, blood and teeth beasts. We are here. Doesn't matter how spiritual you think you are or how intellectual you think you are. You have to breathe, eat, shit, sleep, take care of yourself. It's the vehicle through which your spirit gets to experience this life. So before my mission, before my family, before anything is, did I get enough sleep last night? Did I eat right today? Because I'm not feeling so good. Am I hydrated enough? I drink enough water. You see what I'm saying? Am I thinking loving thoughts or am I beating myself up? You see what I'm saying? So number one is you. That's why my mission, or when I speak to people about what it is that I invite people to do, it's become the strongest version of yourself first. That's why we're here, to experience ourselves fully, to have the experience of full self-expression. When I say full self-expression, I mean from the bodily sense. Like, I don't want to be sick. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be less of myself when it only takes a few good habits so that I can be more of myself and I have more energy. I can express myself better. So that's number one. When it comes to number two, or, your mission and family, I told my wife before we got married, and of course, I have kind of a storybook life in a lot of ways. I married my high school girlfriend, and it was perfect that way because before I got entangled with the world and women, I explained to her, who she was like my friend, we were dating and we were kids, and I was like, look, I'm going to grow up and my life is going to be a roller coaster. I told her this. I said, I'm a crazy man. My life is going to be a roller coaster. Don't have any expectations for the way things are going to be, because I'm going to be up and I'm going to be down. I'm going to travel. I'm going to do all these things. I just told her beforehand, and I said, look, if you want to be my girlfriend, if you want to be my wife, you want to go with me on this, you got to understand that that's who I am, who you're signing up for, and I'm never going to change. And of course, people say whatever they want to say to get you to do what they want to do. And she just nodded and she's like, yeah, I love you. I'll follow you to the end of the earth. What do you want to do? And she and I both took that literally. And so I've made a lot of wild decisions about, when I say wild decisions, I mean non-conventional decisions about career and work and entrepreneurship, and then family also too. In our family, we're the first one. Colleen gave at-home natural childbirth for all four of our children and breastfed them all till the age of 1. That was a kind of an Elliott Hulse. I came up with that. I was the crazy guy. I was like, okay, we're not doing things the normal way. We're not doing it that way. I learned something new, and I want to do it that way. And my wife is, because I always have I do have her best interest in mind. I always do, my family, but I'm the leader. So she trusted me in that. She trusted me in all. To this day, I do all kinds of crazy things, and she tolerates. But she tolerates because a few months later, she's gonna be like, "Oh my God, thank you so much for being this way. Thank you for even when I was afraid." Women are going to be more afraid than men. That's just normal and natural. Safety and security is far more important to women, particularly women that have children or want to have children, than it is for men. And so for her to subjugate her need for safety and security for my adventurousness was really, once again, me being before my family. Mm-hmm. So here it is again. I'm showing you how my selfishness gets me to serve and love and have so many wonderful people in my life. I have 4 children. My children are well cared for and well loved, and man, they have an incredible life, but their life wouldn't be good if I put them first. Their life is good because I put me first, and because I put myself first, I have more than enough to support and lead them with.
Mm-hmm. I really like that. It sounds like you have a special wife too, because
Oh,
a lot of women wouldn't want to or wouldn't be able to tolerate it, right? And
no.
Colleen, she sees the light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows and she can trust you, right? So it's really,
Hmm.
yeah, it's good to have someone like that for sure. It's very
Hmm.
special.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
so to finish off the episode, I just want to ask you a couple rapid fire questions, ones that I ask most of my guests that come on, and you can answer them as little words or as many words as you want.
Hmm.
All right. First one. What kind of things are you doing in your life right now to bring you happiness?
Oh, well, like I said, right before I got here with you, I was at my structural energetic therapist, and he was digging his thumbs and elbows into my quads, and I was screaming to the top of my lungs, and I loved every bit of it. That brings me happiness. Yeah, taking care of myself brings me happiness.
Okay. What would your profession be if you weren't doing fitness? Or I guess what you branched out into as well as entrepreneurship, grounding man, everything you're doing now.
Well, I do whatever I want to do, so yeah, that's really it. Like if I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't do it, and if I want to do it, I'm going to do it, and that's just the way it's going to be. But if I didn't live in that kind of world, which thank God we live in that kind of world with the internet and with we really have so much opportunity that our parents didn't have, information, ideas our parents didn't have. So I don't say that out of arrogance. I say it out of grace. Like, yes, thank you that I can pick, choose, and refuse what I'm going to do, and I can make a lot of money too. So it's fucking awesome. But if I was to have a career, bro, the only thing that I ever did as a job that I enjoyed doing and could probably do is move furniture. I was a furniture mover when I was in college. Yeah, I loaded trucks and unloaded trucks, and I liked it, and it was fine. It was physical, and it was mindless. So it was during those years. It's funny because you would hear somebody say that, and you think like, oh, well, then your life is a waste. No, the reason why I loved it is that number one, I got to work out all day and lift.
Mm-hmm.
Love doing that. But then when I got home, unlike an entrepreneur or a business person, I'm not thinking about anything except I was reading philosophy. That's really what I do. I'd go home and I'd read. I'd bust my ass out there lifting furniture and come home and I just do whatever I want to do. And I thought that was pretty cool too. No responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you were to buy your 20-year-old self two books, one fiction and one nonfiction, which books would you give yourself?
Well, I'd give myself the book that I did buy when I was about 24 years old, which was the collected works of Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I'd give it again. And then, so that's nonfiction. If I was to give myself a fiction book, I don't know because I don't read fiction. Maybe Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist. Probably The Alchemist.
Nice. What was it that drew you to that first book when you first picked it up, the collective works, when you were 24?
Oh, I saw a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote at a high school that I was moving furniture through, and I looked on the board, and there were just like a bunch of different quotes from different people, and the ones from Ralph Waldo Emerson. There was one by Ralph Waldo Emerson that's kind of cliche now because he's so quoted ad nauseum, but I never heard it before in my life at that time, and it was, "What lies behind us and what lies ahead of us is of small matters compared to what lies within us." And I was like, yes, that man is a genius. And so I had to begin reading. So at the time I went online and started reading his stuff, and then I got a gift card to Barnes and Nobles and bought the book, and it sits high on my shelf to this day.
It's pretty amazing how a book can have that much effect on the way that your life goes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Lastly, where can people find and follow you online?
Oh, well, just Google Elliott Hulse, and it depends on what you're into, because I'm into all kinds of different stuff. If you're into lifting, you'll find stuff. If you're into philosophy, you'll find stuff. If you're into meditation and bioenergetics, you'll find stuff. So just Google Elliott Hulse and whatever it is that you're looking into. Right now, I've been I just tipped my toe into this, but I'm really excited about men going their own way. I don't know if you've ever heard of the MGTOW movement, but I like the idea. I like what it stands for and what it means for men in this day and age right now. And that led me to rediscovering sexual transmutation. So I've been looking a lot into the work of Montauk Chia, I think that's his name, and male continence and not busting your nut all the time. So like no fap, these kids that are doing no fap, I get it. I know why. You're taking your sexual energy back. You're taking your sexual power back. You're not being subject to the passions of the body. You can literally transmutate that up into your intelligence and your intuition and think better and be better and have more, rather than chasing women so you can bust a nut.
Yeah, and I think even David Data wrote about that in Way of the Superior Man, how he was saying, instead of, busting a nut, keeping that energy inside you and using that for greater things. So working on your purpose in life, and because it helps you with your drive and all of that stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
I love it. Anyway, Elliott, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a blast just to hear you talk so passionately about all these things that are so important in our lives that no one is really talking about.
Oh, we're talking, man. It's amazing the day that we live in. Guys like you, they're like not to dilute what you're doing, but there are thousands of podcasts now. And it's awesome because there's so much information, there's so much inspiration, there's so many people sharing. It's at our fingertips. You're doing what you're doing here and you don't know. Some 13-year-old kid gets hold of it in the same way that Ralph Waldo Emerson, his words changed my life with that book. Like, one of your interviews could literally reverse the trajectory of a young man's life. Like, we're living in a great time.
Yeah, everything's at our fingertips. It's so cool. Yeah, thanks for coming on, though.
You got it, Jason. Thank you.